Hey, it's me, Shaw360. You're gonna hear a humming in the back because my office is cold, and so I usually keep the heater on because it's cold in here. But I want to talk to you guys about my trip to see Beyonce. Yay! So I told you guys a few months ago that I had got very inexpensive tickets to Beyonce, and that I was going to go to see Beyonce before the summer was out. And I had been excited about it. I've mentioned it several times. Well, I did get to see Beyonce, and I wanted to tell you guys about my trip. I want to tell you guys about the things I saw. I want to tell you guys about my car. I just want to tell you guys about what's been going on with my life. So I'm not going to really be talking about K-pop stuff really, even though Crush did have a new song come out with an artist named Paul Blanco. You might want to check it out. I think it's good. It's got this instrumental percussion. And for those of you who were teenagers in the 90s, early 2000s, maybe you'll recognize it, but the percussive sound on the new song that Crush has out, it reminds me of like Miami bounce music. It kind of reminds me of KP and NB Shorty Swing My Way. It kind of reminds me of Jordan Knight's Give It to You. So I just thought if you are familiar with those songs, you might like this song. It might be fun. It might be cool. It is a damn sight better than the song he did with J Hope. It's way, way better. I hope it is indicative of what direction he's planning on taking his music because I love Miami Bounce, so this works out perfect for me. Also, I have listened to the NCT album Golden Age. I have not ordered a copy yet. I don't know, guys. I thought that the album was good in terms of like it had a pleasant sound. I think Baggy Jeans is a terrible song. Baggy, 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 baggy jeans. I think it's a terrible fucking song. And I'm kind of disappointed that that was what they chose for the lead track. But you know what? I mind my business, you mind yours. But yeah, I'm still on the fence about whether or not I want to get that particular album. I might check out Target, see how much it costs. But I don't know. I feel like at least the last month or so, K-pop hasn't been giving. And Key's got a new album coming out, so I was like, well, maybe I just need to save my money for him. So yeah, I don't really have much to talk about K-pop wise, but let's talk about my trip to Beyonce. So let's start from the moderate beginning. Beyonce is somebody who I have enjoyed over the years, but I was never the biggest Beyonce fan. I'm not even going to pretend like I was. I remember listening to Self Titled and thinking it was good. Of course, we all listened to Single Ladies. That was a thing in the atmosphere. I remember when Lemonade came out and everyone was super excited about Lemonade. I actually didn't listen to Lemonade when it came out until many, many years later. Like, literally, I didn't listen to Lemonade until 2022. And I've never seen the visual album for Lemonade. I did watch Black is King on Disney though, and I thought it was actually pretty good. Um, so yeah, wasn't Beyonce's biggest fan, but when Renaissance came out in 2022, I remember listening to it because it had been so long since Beyonce had had an album out, and I was floored. I remember thinking this album is perfection. This album has no skips. This album is house. This album is queer. This album is black. And it just spoke to something really deep inside of me. And me and Beyonce are about 2 years apart in age. I'm older than her. And it definitely felt like this was an album made by an older black woman paying homage to the queer atmosphere that she grew up in. And I say that because I had that. I don't have anyone that was in my family growing up that I recognized as queer, but I had a best friend in high school who came out to me, and I went with him to our local LGBT community center. I worked in a gay bar for a little while after high school. I have always maintained friendships with several queer people. And so for me, my life has been colored by queer people. Also, the music that I listen to has been colored by queer people. I mean, God, if it's not a queer artist I'm listening to, I'm listening to your queer faves. I'm listening to Madonna. I'm listening to Lady Gaga. I'm listening to the Arianas of the world. Like I am someone who I have often joked, like, had I not been born a black woman, I probably would have been born a black queer male. But I say all that to say that this album really spoke to me. Renaissance as a project really spoke to me, and I wanted to see her perform it because this was the first time where I really felt kind of my personal cultural identity was being reflected in an album. There are a lot of albums I've listened to over the years that I've loved. There's a lot of K-pop albums that really speak to me. There's a lot of Western albums that really speak to me. But this was the first time I felt like somebody made an album as if they had just pulled from every reference point of my life while I was growing up and said, here's an album based on your life. And so it was very important to me to see this album live. However, Beyonce is Beyonce. And I knew that getting tickets was going to be a struggle. So when it first came to getting tickets, I had a couple of ideas of where I needed to go if I was going to try to do this. Houston would have been fairly easy for me to get to. I've got a friend who lives in Houston. I could fly there. We would have had fun. The problem is, Houston is where Beyonce is from, and I knew that tickets for that show would be a fight. Next, Vegas. Vegas would have been on the weekend. Trips to Vegas, like flight wise, very affordable for me for where I'm from. And so I'm like, I could totally do that. Problem, I knew that Vegas would be super crowded because anybody who couldn't get a ticket to the LA show was going to go to Vegas because you can drive to Vegas from LA. So I'm like, okay, well, what is the next closest show that I could go to and I could have fun? It just so happened the next closest show I could go to was in Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix, Arizona is 12 hours driving from me. I probably would have been better off going to Kansas City because that's an 8-hour drive from here. But yeah, Phoenix is a 12-hour drive for me. But I got into the pre-sale for the Phoenix show, and my ticket, I'm trying to remember now. I want to say we were like in section 100 something. Like we had really great tickets. We were section 110, I believe. I got my tickets for $150 a piece, which is beyond reasonable. Like it was a steal. My tickets to Beyonce were a steal. And I got 2 tickets because initially I thought it was going to be me and my daughter going to see Beyonce. That did not happen. Instead, it was me and my best friend. Why was it me and my best friend? Because at the time that I ordered the tickets, we didn't know at the time that her first week of college was going to start the week I needed to be in Phoenix to go to Beyonce. And it was her first week in college. So I'm sorry. As much as we all love the queen, school comes first. So unfortunately, she had to be left home. I was with my best friend. So between like the end of 2022 through most of 2023, I knew I was on my way to see Beyonce. I knew I was on my way to see her. And at the beginning of August, tragedy strikes. I knew I was going to drive to Phoenix. That's why I mentioned it was a 12-hour drive. I knew I was going to drive. I could have flown to Phoenix, but I had a couple of reasons why I wanted to drive. One, I wanted to stop by my grandmother's house and say hey, because it was going to be shortly after my grandmother's 90th birthday. So, of course, got to say hi. I wanted to drive through the town that my mother grew up in Arizona. And I wanted to drive through Utah and go see Moab. So, like, all of this worked for me in terms of like driving. I could accomplish all these things. So, yeah, beginning of August, disaster strikes, and I hit a deer. And I didn't hit a deer because I'm a careless driver. I didn't hit a deer because I drive too fast. It just happens to be the city I live in has a lot of wildlife. Like I saw a bear run through my neighborhood a couple of months ago. And so, yeah, there's a lot of wildlife where I live. We've got bobcats, mountain lions, bears. We've got plenty of deer. Like it's almost a joke. Turn a corner, hit a deer. So one night I was driving with my daughter. We were talking. I am driving the appropriate speed limit, which happened to be, I want to say 45 miles an hour on the street. I've got my headlamps on because it's nighttime. Out of the ditch, like an apparition, comes a buck. Flies in front of my car. By the time I see the buck, because it was just that fast, the buck is a foot away from my car. Hits the passenger side, flies off to the side of the road. I have, after everything is said and done, $11,000 worth of damage on my car. And Beyonce is at the end of August. This is the beginning of August. How the fuck am I going to get from Colorado Springs to Phoenix? So I put my car in the shop. I pray. I look at rental car prices. And I just think to myself, maybe the universe doesn't want me to see Beyonce. But then I think again, you know what? COVID was hard. The time after COVID was hard. I went to work almost every single day during the last 3 years of COVID. I changed jobs during that period, but I literally went from one job on a Wednesday to another job on a Thursday. I worked my ass off. I got my child through school and into another one. I have tried to be the best friend I could to the people in my life who love me and who I love. During COVID, fucking me and Mason started a BL review show. I did lives with you guys. I did everything I could to be a productive member of society during this last time with all of the gifts that I had. Because there are obviously people who couldn't do more than exist during COVID. I know that. And I'm not saying that they're bad people or they don't deserve. What I'm saying is, with my mobility, with my intellectual abilities, with my backside, I worked and I felt like I deserved the opportunity to do something for myself, something that could refresh my soul and make me feel renewed. So I told the Caliber people, I said, listen, I need to go see Beyonce. It's not a can I see Beyonce. It's I must see Beyonce. Is there anything you could do to fix my car even a minute sooner? And she said, well, we estimate your car is going to be done September the 8th. And that obviously was too late for me. So I said, listen, whatever you can do, I'll take it. But please, if you can, get me ready. I got a text message the Tuesday before I was supposed to leave. I was supposed to leave on a Wednesday. I got a text message on the Tuesday I was supposed to leave, before I was supposed to leave. And they told me my car just needed to go through the car wash and it would be ready for me to pick up. I told them, don't bother washing my car. I will be there Wednesday to get my car. I tipped the maintenance person the appropriate amount to show my thank you for getting the job done in time. I put my little backpack and supplies in the car and I drove. I got off work and I drove through the night to get halfway to Phoenix because my grandmother lives like at the halfway point. So yeah, I drove in my car to Phoenix. And it was really important that it needed to be my car. Not just my car because I would have had to have paid for the insurance for a rental. It needed to be my car because my car is a hybrid. And hybrid, if you own one, you'll know is notoriously generous when it comes to gas. I can fill up my tank and get 560 miles off of a tank of gas, which meant that I could literally drive an entire day, 7, sometimes 8 hours a day on one tank of gas. I wasn't going to be able to get a rental car where I could get that kind of mileage. So that's why I needed it to be my car. So I drove. The first night of driving, which was Wednesday night, I had to drive through a couple of national parks on my way to Phoenix, and I was driving at night, and I was scared. I was super scared because, like, I had just literally destroyed the front end of my car hitting a deer. Here I am driving through the night, through a national forest. Who lives in natural forests? Natural forests. Who lives in a natural forest? Deer, bear, elk, bucks, wild animals. So I drove on a pin's edge with my brights on through the national forest, hoping and praying to God no one would hit me. And I saw a lot of deer. I saw more deer than I could count, standing on the side of the road with my brights flashing and them looking at me like they wanted to test me. And I let them know, I will hit you, and if my car is still able to move, I will drive away from you. Don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. And they didn't. I saw a bear cub in the middle of the road at one point. I told that bear cub, I'm going to slow down because I don't want your mama to come out into the road and wreck my car. But if you don't move out the fucking way and I happen to hit you, I'm going to keep driving. I did not hear the bear cub. I wouldn't have done that. I was just bluffing so he would walk a little bit faster across the road. But I got halfway through, like by midnight, I was halfway to my destination, super excited. Also, I listened to the audiobook for Red, White, and Royal Blue while I was on my road trip. So for those of you who are wondering if that's any good, if it's something worth your time, I highly recommend it. So I get up the next morning crack of dawn, literally crack of dawn. And I go for the second half of my journey. I've got another 6.5 hours between me and Phoenix. And I'm driving and I'm driving and I am driving in the rain through the desert. And I have to say, if you've never done it before, it is a surreal experience. First of all, rain in the desert doesn't sound like it should happen, but it does. I mean, deserts have vegetation, they get some rain. But the part of the desert I was driving through was like a red clay desert. It's like if you've ever seen a Roadrunner cartoon, it is literally that desert. That is the desert I was driving through on my way to Phoenix. And it was gorgeous. Like the red clay on the ground looked like it was neon colored. David, thank you. It kind of felt like a road trip movie. The ground was neon colored. It was so vibrantly orange red. And all the brush was like green and lighter green and a little bit blue and a little bit purple. And the rocks were super craggy. And it was just a gorgeous, gorgeous time as I drove through the deserts of New Mexico and Arizona. Then I start I keep going. I get to like northern Arizona. I start driving down. Instead of driving towards the Grand Canyon, I'm driving straight down towards Phoenix. The landscape changes. I start seeing trees, like big tall trees and greenery. Then I get to Sedona and the trees get a little bit sparser. It's a little less green. It starts to get more deserty. Then I get right outside of Phoenix and all of a sudden, huge saguaro cactuses. Saguaro cactuses are what people think of when they think of the word cactus. Like if somebody said, hey, draw a cactus for me, and you draw that stick with the arms, that's a saguaro cactus. I highly recommend you look them up. They're fascinating plant species, but they're kind of like the gatekeepers of the desert in a place where water doesn't really fall that much. A lot of desert animals get their water from saguaro cactuses. When the saguaro cactuses are in danger, it means that there's something wrong with the entire ecosystem of the desert. They are what keeps the desert going. And I had never seen a field of them in my life. I'd seen one here, one there, because I used to live in the desert when I was growing up. But this was the first time I had seen an entire field of hundreds, as far as the eye could see, of saguaros. So very, very impressive. Finally get to Phoenix in the afternoon, the day of the Beyonce concert. I rolled into Phoenix, I want to say 4 o'clock, the afternoon of the concert, and it is hotter than a motherfucker. It is 110 degrees when I get to Phoenix. My best friend, who I'm going to the concert with, she flew from Houston to Phoenix, and I had gotten a hotel room. I put both of our names on it. She was already waiting at the hotel for us to, be able to go to the concert. I got to the hotel room. We said our hellos. I took a shower because I had been on the road for so long, got dressed. We went down to the bar to get something to eat before we left for the concert because they did not have like a restaurant at this hotel. And we just knew we weren't going to have time to go to a restaurant. We needed something to eat right then so we could keep going. So we ate, got dressed again in our concert gear, and then drove to the concert. Now, I had already anticipated I needed to be early to get parking. I had paid for parking, but I needed to be early to get parking for the concert. So I had factored in if we leave the hotel 3 hours before Beyonce is supposed to actually start the concert, we should be fine. Because they said that the concert started at 8. I knew Beyonce wasn't going to make it to the stage until 9. And so us leaving the hotel at 6 on the dot, I felt like we should have plenty of time to get into the concert. No, ma'am, no, sir. State Farm, you really did me a disservice by not having traffic management outside of the entrance to the stadium parking because it took us maybe 30 or 40 minutes to get from the hotel, which was by the airport, to State Farm Stadium. It took us a little over an hour and a half, hour 45 to get from where we got in line for stadium parking to the grassy field that I ended up parking at. We were inch for almost 2 hours. It was so desperate in that line that we literally saw a couple abandon their car. And when I say abandon their car, I mean they turned their hazard lights on. Someone got out the passenger side. The driver got out of the driver's side. and they walked to the arena. And I remember thinking to myself, this is shit I've never seen before. I don't think tonight's going to be a great night. Well, we finally get into the actual like drive to the stadium parking. I show them my stadium parking pass. They're not scanning it or anything. Just having the image on my phone is enough. They're not scanning it. So I'm like, okay, whatever. I paid $25. I could have just snuck in this bitch. So I'm driving and I'm waiting to get a parking space. All of the regular parking next to the stadium apparently is full, even though as we're walking to the stadium, we noticed there were some empty spots like right next to the stadium, but whatever, I digress. So they park me in the practice field for the Arizona football team, which is wild. It made for a long trek to the stadium. We get out the car, we hop a fence to get on the way to the door to State Farm Stadium. We are walking as fast as we can, and I hear the very fucking beginning of Flaws and All. I missed the first 2 songs of the concert, fucking around with the traffic management to get into the fucking State Farm parking. I will never go to another concert at State Farm unless it is literally shiny. I will never give them people another penny of my money. So we're rushing. I'm ready to run at this point if I need to, because I can't miss the whole concert. My friend has got on heels. She can't run. So I'm like power walking, but stopping, and then power walking and then stopping. I have my clear concert bag. I was ready for this. I got through, showed him my ticket. I'm doing everything I can to get to the seats. The way that the concert was set up in a U shape. And like all of Beyonce's team and all their stuff is behind a curtain. And that set of seating there, because this is a football stadium, you couldn't go to. Where we parked was the exact opposite side entrance of where our seats were. So we got in the stadium. I saw Beyonce, saw her down there, and then I had to walk the entire rest of the length of the auditorium to get to where our seats were. So I figured I'm not going to hear all of the ballads that start the show. It really sucks that that's going to happen. But since I know I'm already going to miss it, let's buy a couple of t-shirts. I did buy 2 shirts. No, I bought 3 shirts at the venue. All 3 shirts cost $55 a piece. And the biggest size they had was a 2X. I was so disappointed. I was so disappointed in how expensive the shirts were and how limited the sizes were that I didn't even think to buy a tour book. And now I'm fucking kicking myself because I wanted a tour book more than anything and I did not get one. So we finally make it to our side of the stadium to get to our seats. And during this walk, I have to say, even though I was annoyed that I had to do all this walking, it was kind of nice because I got to see other people's outfits for the show. They had one guy, I don't know if you've seen the pictures from the show. Beyonce has this like nude balmain bodysuit that looks like it's got these hands covering her chest and covering her hoo-ha and running up her leg. I saw a man wearing that exact same costume, like bodysuit, but it was obviously like bought it on Temu or something. And the zipper had busted. Girl, he was like turned around so like you could just see like his butt area or whatever, and there was like a button holding the pants together or holding the suit together, and then a huge circle where the entire zipper had broken, and the circle stopped at the top of his ass crack. And I remember thinking, oh, the girls are tired. They've been through something to get here. So another person with a hat literally this big, made out of denim with sparkles and white fringe, and then a matching one-piece denim jumpsuit. I mean, the fashion I saw was incredible. So we make it to our area where our seats are. Our seats are like just a couple of seats away from the end of the aisle. There were 2 people standing in our seats. I had to let them know, I am so sorry, but those are our seats. Y'all need to scoot back. They didn't give us any stress. They did scoot back, thank goodness. But I was like, did you really think somebody wasn't going to show up for these seats? Is that really what you thought was going to happen? You at least need to wait until like 5 songs in to move. So we get to our seats, having a great time. And uh, after like the first couple of ballads that we missed, there were a couple more ballads. All of a sudden, the screen shuts down. It's time for Renaissance. And I'm excited because I came here to hear Renaissance songs. That's what I plan to freaking do. And we're doing great. Like the first couple of songs, perfect. Everyone's excited. It's so lovely. My daughter really likes the song Alien Superstar. So I told her I was going to make sure I taped different things from the concert so she could see them since she couldn't come. Alien Superstar starts. And you hear, I'm one of one. And that's it. Complete silence. No microphone, no backing track, nothing. So the entire crowd is like singing the song because they're like, maybe this is like some kind of, what do you call it? Like the mute challenge where all of us kind of sing along with it, just see what kind of fan we are. Then Beyonce walks off the stage. We realize there has been a technical issue. Somebody is losing their job. Somebody fucked up big time. It took them 10 minutes to get everything back working again. Beyonce comes back out, brand new outfit, hits the stage, does the thing. Hey, Aggie. So after that, there were no more technical difficulties as far as I could see. And the rest of the show went off without a hitch. I really enjoyed myself. But my friend who came with me from Houston had a 5 o'clock return flight. And we needed to get from one side of the town to the other side of town it was going to take us 30 minutes. And if we waited until the rest of the crowd of the show left, it would have taken us 2 hours. And we were already like looking down at midnight. So I actually missed the last 3 songs of the show. So I missed Heated, I missed Thick, I missed America Has a Problem. I think I missed something else. I didn't get to see the voguing. I missed a good part of the concert. I hate that I had to do that. But my best friend spent $600 on plane tickets just to be with me at the Phoenix show. She's not even a huge Beyonce fan, but she's a huge fan of yours truly. And she made the effort to be out there to meet with me. And so the least I could do is make sure she made it back to the hotel so she could get some sleep, she could catch her flight, and she could go home. So yeah, that is my trip to Beyonce. It was full of anxiety. It was full of like barely met deadlines, missed deadlines, frustrations, anxiety again. But overall, Beyonce is a beautiful woman. Like, goddamn. I always thought I knew what Beyonce looked like, but when those cameras, those HD cameras, put her face on those LED screens, it was like, wow, I didn't know Beyonce was that beautiful. Her costumes look like money. Even when you look at the costumes on Twitter, you have no idea how expensive these costumes look in person while you are there. Like, while she's on the floor and we're looking from our seats, they sparkle. Like, Blue danced her little heart out. She was so adorable. She's 11 years old, and it was crazy seeing the baby grow up like that, seeing her being a member of her mom's dancing crew. And I don't know, Beyonce had a real black ass moment in the middle of the concert that was a lot of songs that were made for people who love black music. Like, she did a little bit of Bow Down Bitches. She did Fit to Formation. Like, she did a lot of things that I was really glad to see that were made for people who appreciate her. But more than anything, Beyonce made this show, just like she made Renaissance, for me. And I'll say it because a lot of people have criticized this Beyonce tour. They've criticized her for not doing Single Ladies. They criticized her for not doing her biggest hits. They've criticized her for wanting to open the show with no opener, but instead her singing ballads. And for people who are like not the biggest Beyonce fans in the world, some of these ballads are ballads that they never paid attention to because they never really paid attention to the B-sides. They only ever paid attention to the solo singles. And I get that because as I explained at the very beginning of this conversation, I wasn't the biggest Beyonce fan in the world. I liked her, but I liked her casually. However, this show wasn't for the casual Beyonce fan. It wasn't for people who like to do Wine Wednesdays and, dance with their girlfriends to Beyonce. This concert was for the queer community that had followed Beyonce since 1997. This concert was for the fan who knew all the words to all the B-sides. This concert was for Black women joy. And I just, even though I haven't been a Beyonce stan like that, I really appreciated how she didn't give a fuck about making sure that she made a show that appeased her mainstream audience. She made a show that appeased the audience that she wanted to talk to. And that's why I say this was a show made for me, because I've said it over and over on my YouTube channel. I make my YouTube videos for myself and for you. And I don't make it to make more subscribers. I don't make these videos to try to become YouTube famous. I make these videos for me and my people, the people who have followed me, the people who have known me for a long time, the people who continue to be generous with their time and their genuine commentary on the things I have to talk about. And so when I think about her doing a show with that kind of ethos, it just really speaks to my heart. And I was so impressed with her that I have been debating whether or not I want to buy tickets to the Kansas City show. Like, I could get the tickets for a very reasonable price. Like, they're very reasonable right now. But I don't necessarily want to drive 9 hours one direction. So I'm debating whether or not I'm going to try to do Kansas. We'll see. We'll see. I'm going to give myself another 2 weeks to think about it before it just becomes impossible to try to pull off. But I'm thinking about it. So after we get back to the hotel room, me and my friend go to sleep. I sleep like the fucking dead. I do not wake up. Even when she says goodbye, I'm like, bye, girl. And I go back to sleep. But I get up and I begin my trek back towards Moab because I decided I wanted to take an extra day on the road. And so I drove through northern Arizona. I drove through a little bit of like the edge of Arizona, New Mexico. And then because I decided to stop several places and look around, I made some close up pictures of some of the saguaro cactus. I actually didn't get to the Utah border until darn near dusk, which meant that I drove through southern Utah in the dark. And Utah is frankly a very scary state to me. They got big rocks in Utah, huge, huge rocks. Like, it feels like you're driving through canyons all over the place. But I made it to Moab at night, and I had one of the weirdest hotel experiences I've ever had. So I checked into a hotel called the Adventure Inn, and I had a really great deal. It was like less than $100 a night, and since it was just me, and I was planning on getting on the road in the morning, I didn't need great accommodations. But when I walked into the main office, there was no one there. And I'm like, okay, well, how am I supposed to check in? Baby, they had a check-in kiosk at this hotel. You press a button, wait for the server to connect. My server didn't connect for about 3 or 4 tries. I went to the bathroom, tried it again. It finally connected. When it connected, I'm talking to a man halfway across the world using a Zoom with green screen, and he's literally like checking my ID. They have a little scanner plate where they scan your ID. Everything done remote. I was like, girl, I was not expecting this. I am in the future. But yeah, got the kiosk, got my key, went to bed after being on the road for so long, got up the next day to drive through Moab. So, drive through the town of Moab, decided to get a little breakfast, get a little gas, look to see what's at the grocery store, wash the bugs and dirt off my front windshield. And then I'm thinking, I'm going to go to Arches. That'll be fun. I'm in Moab. Arches is there. For those of you who don't know what Arches is this kind of geological phenomenon that happens in Utah where there's these rock formations that are like not perfect circles, but they're circles. So basically the rock grows around like this, but inside it's just space. And people take really beautiful photography of these. There's also some really interesting, like tall, narrow canyons. Like it's a cool thing to see. Well, just like anything that's popular, apparently Arches is so popular you have to reserve times to enter the national park. And all of the times for the morning had already been reserved, so I did not get to go see Arches. I almost went to go see the potash fields, but once I couldn't see Arches, I was kind of disappointed. So I decided to get on the road and just make my way back to Colorado. And I get off on this road called 128, Highway 128. And immediately I am greeted by one of the most beautiful rock river formations I have ever seen. Like, the Colorado River was right there, these huge, tall, jagged red rocks. There's greenery on the sides of the road. The road is wide, bright blue skies. Just, it looked like I was driving through a postcard. It was so gorgeous. I filmed several different clips of my drive. And probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to eventually put together like a little, like, my road trip, the highlight reel. But I saw so much beautiful scenery on my way there, or my way getting out of Moab. Finally, I get to Interstate 70, which by then all the beauty is gone. Utah is super ugly when you get outside of kind of like the rocky areas of Utah. So I'm driving. I drive to Grand Junction, Colorado, which is cool. I ate at a place called Cafe Rio, which was very tasty. It's like an upgraded Chipotle, if I had to describe it was. Then I keep driving until I get to, what is that? What's the name of that fucking town? Avon. I get to Avon, Colorado, and then I decide instead of driving on to Denver, I wanted to drive south, and I was going to drive through Leadville. I end up driving through just some of the prettiest green landscape that you can find in Colorado. Mountains, long, tall pine trees, river on the side, windy roads. I drove up a mountain, down a mountain, across a suspension bridge. Like, this road trip was so healing for me. And that's what I thought was going to happen. Last year, when I had my issue with everything that went on, I took a month off and I took 2 road trips during that time because being on the road has always helped me think. But this road trip, I just felt brand new. I I felt I felt one with nature. I felt like nature was hearing me. I felt I felt like I got a chance to see something bigger than me to remind me that my problems are small. And it just meant the world to me. It really did. It meant the world to me. It was a really profoundly calming situation to be on the road for hours at a time, just me and my Spotify downloads. Also, while I was on the road, I downloaded and listened to the new Victoria Monet album, Jaguar 2. If you have not listened to it and you enjoy R&B music the way that I do, highly, highly recommend. It was just, there was some yacht rock. There was a little like kind of early Michael Jackson-esque sounds. The song "On My Mama." If you haven't watched that video, very entertaining music video, very good song. But it was just so. It was so what I needed. It was so what I needed. I got home like before dark, and then I slept off some things, and then immediately got sick right after because COVID has come back, and girl got sick almost immediately after coming home because I did not wear a mask at the Beyonce concert because I am irresponsible. But I have to say, overall, I'm very, very fortunate, very blessed to have had this experience, to have all that anxiety and rushing and everything else on my way to the concert and through the concert, and then be able to just completely decompress on my way back home. It was worth it for me, absolutely worth it for me. So I just wanted to let you know kind of how things went, and just let you into my life. I know most of the time I'll tell you guys I'm not going to talk about K-pop, and then I'll spend like an hour talking about K-pop, or sometimes 2 hours. But this time, like, I really did want to talk about this trip, and I want to talk about this trip too because I really didn't spend that much money on this trip. I paid gas. I spent about $50 a day on gas, which is pretty reasonable considering that I was driving anywhere between, like I said, 6 to 8 hours a day. But I got cheap hotel rooms. Every hotel room I got was either $100 or $110. And I drove and I ate cheap. I went to McDonald's at one point. I went to like a local taco place when I was in Phoenix, and the rest of it was me like stopping at grocery stores and buying stuff from the deli section. Like, I didn't do big eating out at all. And that really made it to where a trip that probably if I had like booked airplane, hotel, ate out at restaurants all the time, I probably could have easily spent $700 just housing and transportation. I spent $450 outside of concert merch and concert tickets. And I was on the road Wednesday night to Saturday evening. So let's see, Wednesday night overnight, I stayed with family. So I feel like that doesn't count. But like Thursday night and Friday night, I had 2 hotel rooms. I spent $200 all total in gas and about $50 in food for my trip. And it was worth it. So my recommendation for you, if you are feeling like you need a recharge, like you really need to do something for you, especially if life is just driving you absolutely batty, I recommend finding a way to get away. Just find a way to go do something where you can't think about work, you can't think about the shit that's going on right now that's been bugging you, where you can maybe just get some quiet if you find that your life is really loud right now, and spend some money on you. You don't have to spend a lot of money. Like if you can drive, do that. If you can take a bus, do that. If you can find a way to walk to a park, do that. But really spend some time on you. This world will convince you that you need to be a part of it in order to be able to show that you have made it or that you're a part of society. But society is so fucked up right now and has been for a long time, but it feels especially fucked up right now, that sometimes you just need to get away from society. Like sometimes you just need to be you. And that's why I say find a way to be you. If you can drive, great. If you can't drive, try to take a bus. If you can't take a bus, just maybe walk outside and put some headphones in, some noise canceling, and listen to an album you haven't listened to in a really long time. An album that allows you to get either lost in the music or lost in the lyrics, but just spend some time with you, because I don't think I'd spent enough time with me recently. And that spending time with me, I kind of forgot how much I like me. I kind of forgot some of the kooky thoughts I have in my mind when I'm just left to my own devices. And so I definitely recommend you guys do that for yourself if you can. But I'm back to work, which is why we're in the office, and I'm living life. I spent a lot of my drive thinking about what could I do to change my life, if I should make changes in my life. And I haven't come up with all the answers yet, but I'm a lot closer to deciding what I need to do next for sure. So one of the big benefits of this drive. But mostly, I kind of wanted to tell you guys about my trip because I don't know. I also wanted to emphasize that I kind of life outside of this K-pop shit. I'm sorry. I think that's important too. Um, I think that sometimes our fandoms make us crazy. I think sometimes we get so invested in our fandoms that we kind of forget that there's other shit going on. Like there's other things in the world going on. And that was one of the things that this concert was really also good for me for, is I feel like I had devoted so much time to K-pop and, just trying to be a part of like the happenings and the goings on in K-pop. And even though I wasn't following a lot of new groups, I was still making sure I invested a great deal of my time trying to keep up with K-pop, whether I was keeping up with buying albums from my fave or other people's comebacks, or trying to figure out what's a new group I want to listen to, or keeping up with the K-pop news. Apparently Dio's smoking in public spaces. Who knew? Who knew he was smoking? His voice sounds great. Maybe you shouldn't do that, buddy. But I feel like I was really neglecting other music while I was listening to K-pop so much. Like I'd even given up watching BLs, honestly, because I had been involved with K-pop so much. And it was good to remind myself, like, there's other stuff out there that you could be doing with your time, that you could be doing with your resources. I watched an entire not K-drama, I did watch an entire K-drama a couple months ago, but I watched an entire Thai BL in one weekend after I got back. So the weekend after I got back on Saturday and then Sunday. I spent the entirety of Sunday watching a BL on the GMMTV YouTube channel. I watched a BL called Be My Favorite, which I know Aggie's going to be like, I can't believe you watched that. We're boycotting Chris. I know, Aggie. I know we're boycotting Chris. Don't be mad at me. I watched it because I heard from other people that it was good. And it was a time travel BL, and I love the idea of time travel. So I watched it, and it was actually pretty sweet. I actually really enjoyed it. It wasn't super raunchy, which I appreciated because there's been some stuff I've watched recently involving BL that's been like quite raunchy. But yeah, I just did some other shit. I listened to Victoria Monet's album. Every Friday, I've been listening to the New Music Friday playlist on Spotify, which has a lot of music that I don't normally listen to at all, but I've been doing that to keep my musical eye open, if you will. I even listened to the New Music UK list, and one time, just randomly, I ended up listening to like the New Music India playlist. And so, yeah, I've been putting myself out there. I've been putting myself out there. I've been experiencing things. I've been reminding myself that I had a life before I discovered K-pop and I need to get back to it. That doesn't mean I'm ever going to give up K-pop completely. Like, I'm never going to be one of those people who's going to be like, hey, K-pop sucks. I don't like it. I'm never going to be that person. But I'm definitely going to be a person who imbibes in K-pop in moderation. And I have to say, I'm proud of the friends that I have done the exact same thing. I have several friends on here who I made when I was at the height of my big collecting and streaming time here on YouTube. And they don't really get down like that with K-pop. Like Meg is one of the people who I remember when I first met her in the comment section on a lot of my YouTube videos. She was trying to collect like all the cards for one particular member for NCT, and she was just really like, she's also a big SM stan like myself, and she was doing a lot of K-pop collecting here on the channel, on not my channel, but on her channel. Now, when I look at her feed, it's almost always full wrestling, and wrestling was her first love, and she returned to it. I'm super proud of her for that. Jazzy, Jazzy, one of my best Shawwal friends here, Shawwal5, like she still does K-pop, but she's not nearly doing as much shiny content as she used to. And she's into other stuff. She's into nails. She's into all kinds of, I look on her Instagram, she's into all kinds of other stuff. So yeah, she's doing something different. David is living his life, obviously. He's doing research in Mexico. I just, I'm proud of the people in my life. Fucking Alex got cats. Alex got two sets of cats. Jade is living her life, started a new job recently. You know, Mason and I talk about cool stuff, but you know, he's busy living his life as well. There's just a lot of people that I started YouTube with, and we were all here because K-pop was the dominating thing, and it's just not that way anymore. Even Aggie, like, she's still a huge Yixing fan, but she's not talking about that all the time when she's talking about stuff on Twitter. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Last thing I want to talk about before I leave, I watched the movie Bottoms. I'm talking about it here just because I don't want to make a separate video talking about this, but I do need to talk about it with somebody. So me and my daughter go to see Bottoms, and it was way, way different than I thought it was going to be. I don't know what I thought it was going to be. Honestly, I think I thought it was going to be like maybe Clueless, but for lesbians, or maybe I thought it was going to be like Never Been Kissed with Drew Barrymore. I, I, I don't. I don't know that I had any real idea what it's going to be, but it is wild. It is wild. I watched Bottoms with my daughter, and it's about two girls who I believe are high school seniors who have crushes on these other two girls at their school. One of them who has a boyfriend, the other one who just isn't interested. And they get in trouble for accidentally running into the star quarterback, even though they really didn't run into him. Like, they just love tapped him on the kneecap. And so the principal is like, why would you do this? You're going to ruin our chances to win the big game. And they say, well, we're practicing because we're starting a female self-defense club. So they end up starting this club because they had told this lie to the principal, but also they were hoping that the girls they're interested in will join the club. they'll get close to each other by being club members together, and eventually they could fuck. And that's what these girls want to do. They want to fuck. They don't want to be in loving long-term relationships. Or at least it doesn't sound like that. It sounds like they just want to fuck. And so they start this club, but it's not a self-defense club as much as it's like a fight club. And everybody's got black eyes and bloody noses and bruises. And it's like, it's real. It's real graphic with the fighting. Anyway, the two girls who started this, they're telling a series of lies in order to get to their end goal of getting these girls to be interested in them. One of them succeeds, the other one does not. Well, the one that does not, eventually it comes to a point where the club has to disband, and the one who doesn't get her goal doesn't want to disband the club. But another girl's like, yeah, we should. This is fine. It's not a big deal. And she's like, you wouldn't even have this club if it wasn't for me. I did a lot of things to help you out with the club, but she wasn't lying. And the girl who did not meet her goal just says the most ruthless shit to her, right? So this is why I have to talk about this. So the girl who gets insulted and is basically told, you are a loser with no friends and your mother's a whore. She gets approached by one of the football players looking for revenge for them love tapping the knee of that other quarterback. And he's like, I want to talk to you. So here comes the big rally before the game. And homegirl, who's got the whore mother, she is asked to demonstrate to the school what she learned from the self-defense club against the school's top boxer. And it's a huge guy, like easily 6'3", maybe smooth 270, 80 pounds. And she's like maybe a 5'7" girl, 145 Hollywood type weight. And they start fighting. And when I say he whoops her ass, it was difficult to watch. He kicks her in the head at one point. He punches her straight in the face. I mean, it was just, I know the film was supposed to be like comedy, but it was so graphic and it was so horrible to watch that I was just like, I don't know if I want to finish this. This is really bad. And like, there's a lot of unlikable people in this fucking movie. A lot of unlikable people in this fucking movie. Because that's the thing nowadays. Nowadays, the whole thing is you don't have to like the main characters. Not everyone can be likable. And we're making movies about real people, not likable people. Anyway. So finally, they get to the end of the movie, which I'm gonna spoil the ending for you. I've already told you a lot of stuff that happened, but I'm about to really spoil the end for you. So the two main girls fall out. Their friendship breaks up, and one of the main girls finds out that the other school in years past has always killed a member of the rival football team, either by like murdering them in some gruesome way or some other way of killing one of the members of the rival team. And they find out that their star quarterback was going to be killed at the game because they had put pineapple juice in the irrigation system, and he's deathly allergic to pineapple juice. So they get him out of the way of the pineapple juice, but the other team is super pissed because they're like, you thwarted our plans. Now you have to die. They get in a fist fight, and these girls end up killing all the football players on the other team, and that is considered the happily ever after. Ta-da! Oh, and one kid threatens to blow up the school, but another girl blows up a tree. Y'all. If you like Tarantino, if you like the movie Heathers, if you don't mind violence, graphic violence, if you don't mind watching movies with unlikable lead characters, this movie's for you. This movie is absolutely for you, especially if you're like, I'm tired of seeing lesbians be sensitive and renting U-Haul trucks. I want to see them do some like reckless mad shit. Then here you go. But for me, I was just like, they need to do something about these trailers because this was not what I was expecting, and it was just a little bit too surreal for me to really get down with. So yeah, it's fucking wild. It's fucking wild. It felt like it should have been a Netflix show instead of a movie. Like it really felt like it should have been something she'd seen on Netflix. But I watched it with my daughter. My daughter really loved it. So, I mean, that's an endorsement. That's an endorsement. But yeah, I had to have some place to talk about it because the fucking movie is wild. That movie is wild, buddy. It's wild. If you're gonna go with your parents to see it, if you still do stuff like that, or if you're gonna go with a friend who's like a little bit mild mannered, maybe a little gets icked out quickly, girl, don't do it. Don't do it. I wasn't ready. I was not ready. I was not ready, girl. Also, Cindy Crawford's daughter is hyper beautiful. Cindy Crawford's daughter is in this movie. She looks just like her damn mother. She is so tall and so thin and so beautiful in the face. And she plays this really deadpan character. Totally suits her affect. Totally suits it. But yeah, that was that crazy ass movie. I don't have anything else to give you. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Diana. Thank you, David. Thank you, Aggie. Thank you, everyone who commented during the live. Thank you for sitting and listening to me talk at you for so however long. And just take care of yourselves. Like, seriously, take care of yourselves. It's rough as hell out here, man. It's rough as hell out here. And I know there's a lot of you that are being affected by a lot of things that are happening in the world. So take care of yourself. Bye.